Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Annalisa and this is Homemade Sunshine. So in this week's video, I'm sharing 5 things I've learned in 5 years of marriage. So I've been married, like the title says, for 5 years. I got married in 2018 to my wonderful husband, Nathan. And for a little bit of background on us, we are the same age. We met in 4th grade and there was no friendship or romantic attraction at all at that age. We were reintroduced when we were 16, and there was still no romantic attraction at that point. And well, I think we were just both, we went to different schools and we're not interested in dating one another at that point. I was one of those teenagers who was not very into the dating scene. I enjoyed hanging out with my friends and like focusing on school, which looking back, I think that was a big positive for me instead of being overly concerned about boys for the most part. So, and he was, you know, at his school doing his own thing. So we didn't meet again until, well, we started emailing when we were 19 at the bequest of one of his family members when he was joining the military and I was transferring to a community college from a regular college. We both kind of were having, you know, big upheavals in our lives at that point. So we just started talking and we never stopped talking. Fast forward, we were dating. We got married a little over a year after we started dating. And my husband, actually within the first, I think month, basically a month, maybe a couple weeks, give or take, went ahead and told me, you know, I want to marry you if that's what you're wanting. That's like my aim here is to, you know, marry you and save for a ring. So I think that might have scared a lot of people at 19, but I was like gung-ho, totally ready for it. So here we are 5 years later, and clearly it's all, you know, worked out, even though I'm sure in some parts of the country getting married at 20 is young. I've never really felt that way from our family members or anything like that. Military people tend to get married younger. I know that's like a stereotype, so we fell into that. But also in our religious community, people tend to get married early. So, you know, that wasn't out of the norm. Like most of the people he graduated school with are married. So for our religious circumstances, you know, that wasn't very uncommon. So we've been married 5 years. We've moved, I think we've moved 4 times in 5 years, all over the place. And now we are finally settled in our permanent home that we purchased here last year. Well, permanent as in until we probably buy another house at some point, but permanent as in I don't have to move every year. This is actually the first August that I have not moved in 3 years. We moved here. Yeah, 3 years. It's been 3 years since I've moved in August. So I almost like, I feel like this is the first August I'm experiencing for such a long time, and really the first summer we've experienced in a long time, because we've either been like prepping to move or looking for a house. So it's been, those were chaotic summers. So I've been happy to have a nice, more calm, relaxing summer. So that's a little background on us, and we'll get to the tips. So first, I've learned always to be quick to show appreciation. I think it's important in a marriage to be quick to say thank you and to show appreciation for the things that your spouse is doing for you. And I'm just going to be speaking from my perspective because I don't like to speak for my husband. I don't think anybody should speak for, you know, somebody else. It's not them. But speaking from my perspective, I think it's important to always show appreciation, even if it's something they do all the time. Such as, for example, my husband always washes his dishes. Always. Always has. The whole time we've been married, he's always washed the dishes. He says he doesn't care for how I wash the dishes, and I am fine to just let him take over that job. I'm not fighting him to wash dishes. So, but I always try to make sure to say thank you, because he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to wash the dishes. I mean, I am a full-time homemaker, so that kind of falls under the umbrella of things that I maybe should technically be doing at home, but it's just something that he always does for me. He always has done his own laundry. And I think that's like a military thing, because their uniforms cost so much money, that he wanted to make sure when he was like washing a dress uniform or something that like he was, if something went wrong, it was his fault and it wasn't mine. So that's just kind of carried over, that he does his own laundry. I always, try to show appreciation for the things that he does for me and does for our little family unit here. He makes sure that different things with the cat are taken care of, like cleaning out her litter box. I've never had to do that. Thankfully, I'm glad I don't have to do that. And so I just think it's important to show appreciation, even if it's for things that happen all the time. And I think an act of showing gratitude, like we talk about in the Bible, I feel like I've seen like a million devotionals on gratitude and being grateful for your life, not to be envious, not to covet what somebody else has. And I think we can practice being grateful for our lives by being grateful for our husbands and grateful for the things that they do for us, and making sure to verbalize it so they actually know that we're grateful for it. I tell my husband how I'm grateful that he is a good provider. I'm grateful that I do not have to go to work, all of those things. So even when I feel like even if your spouse is not a words of affirmation love language person, I think everybody appreciates being seen for the things they're doing. Both of our main love languages are acts of service. So I feel like acts of service coincides somewhat with words of affirmation, even though that's not like either of our higher tiered love languages, because you're recognizing that they're doing a service for you, and you're able to say like, I see that you're doing something for me and I appreciate it, and I just want to acknowledge the act of service that you are providing. So my first one would be, always be quick to show appreciation. Just say thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the things that your spouse does for you each and every day. And I feel like that can help improve your marriage if you just say it. Just say it. Which, my second, Lord have mercy, I'm already getting off my numbers. Second is to be a united team on finances and your financial goals. I feel like I've listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey content, and people call in all the time trying to get out of debt and not being united with their spouses, some of them committing financial infidelity, which is where somebody has usually in that case is like they've spent a bunch of money on something that they didn't tell you about. I mean, he's gotten calls in from people who like their spouses racked up $50,000 on a credit card and not told them, and how apparently it triggers the same things in your brain as a physical affair would have. And it's important to just be united in your goals, so you're not, two become one, you're united, one in one flesh, so you need to be pointing your boat in the same direction. And I feel like my husband and I have been very good about that, and making sure to keep each one of us paddling in the same direction. We're not trying to paddle in two different directions, because the boat won't ever move. If we're both trying to paddle, one of us is paddling forwards, the other one's paddling backwards, we're never going to get there. Or, maybe you're both going forwards, but somebody's turning to the left, you're not going to end up in the destination that was your common goal. For example, we are hoping, well, I say we, my husband desires it, I feel like even more so than I do, but we both desire to own more land and be in the mountains in a home eventually. That's like a 10-year project. That's way in the future, but it's a goal and it's something that we can be united in. And so when you're maybe wanting to spend extra money on something that's not needed, something frivolous that you really, I'm being like completely, you don't need it, a new item of clothing or something, you can remind your spouse of, is this going to help us achieve our goal? Another way I feel like you can help with the whole keeping the finances together, especially if maybe somebody is more of the spender, which is me. And I'm still pretty frugal, but I would say out of the both of us, I'm still more of the spender than my husband is. He is more like he'll save up and then for like 3 years and then buy something. So, and it'll be like one larger thing, where I'm more likely to spend little bits of money here and there. But to just, if you're gonna order something online, I always ask my husband before I do, because then sometimes he can remind me and say, do you really need that? Or have I been tricked, hypnotized into wanting to purchase something that I actually don't need because it looks pretty on the screen? So, I mean, because he lets me buy things all the time, but just to be mindful of certain things are not things that we need, such as like when Bath and Body Works had the semi-annual sale and they had a bunch of soap on sale. He was totally fine with ordering whatever amount of soap that we needed because that's the only soap we use is those pump hand soaps from Bath and Body Works. It's the one that he prefers. It's the one that I prefer. So it doesn't matter to him how much we order in that fact. So but if I'm maybe, this had happened a couple years ago, but I wanted to order some more devotional books. And he said, how many devotional books do you have in this in the house that aren't read, that you haven't finished? Because the price wasn't the problem. It was the fact that I hadn't gotten through the majority of mine. Now, if I had said I had like 3 left or 2 left, he'd have been like, oh yeah, go ahead. But I had plenty. So it, helps me to be like, oh yeah, okay, that isn't actually something that I need. I'm just having an emotional feeling like I need this and I don't need it. So it helps you to be able to achieve your goals and reduce marital strife. Because I think that's one of the things Dave Ramsey says is like the number one cause of divorce in America is money fights and money problems. And that's just not something that we've luckily had to deal with in our marriage. We just try to keep each other on the same track, on the same boat, moving in a common direction. So number 3 this time is dates don't need to be expensive. So, we got married young, and I think sometimes social media especially will convince young people. Like you'll see couples going off on exotic trips and all of these different things. And if you can afford that and that's something you prioritize in your marriage and in your budget, go right ahead. It is not something that we prioritized. We usually do really big for our birthdays and our anniversary. And by doing something big, it means like we'll eat out twice in a day or something. Like our last anniversary, we went to Pigeon Forge and we went to the aquarium, and the Pigeon Forge aquarium is very expensive. Honestly, I don't really recommend it. We both said it felt a little bit more tourist trappy than fun, and it was hot in there and there was a lot of people, and yeah, it wasn't our favorite. It wasn't our favorite. It was very touristy, and I was just like, it wasn't our preference. But normally we would go on a hike, which is free, but it was raining, so we couldn't go do that. We're hike people, which goes back to dates don't need to be expensive. Hiking and walking is free, and it's good exercise, and it gives you the opportunity to talk. Going to a movie, if you don't eat snacks, it's not horribly expensive. If you see a matinee, my mom and I went and saw the Barbie movie recently, and we saw a matinee, and it really wasn't as expensive as I thought it would be for going on I think we went on Monday morning, and it was not very crowded because it was a Monday morning. But, oh gosh, that just took me off my train of thought. But anyways, during a movie, you're not really getting that quality time together in a theater because you're not talking, you're not discussing. Whereas if you go on a walk, even just at your local park, that is a way to reconnect and reestablish those bonds. It's also something if you have a new baby that you can easily do because you can put the baby in the stroller and go, and you don't have to worry about your baby screaming in a restaurant and you feeling embarrassed. You can also pack a picnic because, I say pack a picnic, not like going to Chick-fil-A and buying stuff for a picnic, unless that's in your budget. I preface this all to say, if it's in your budget, go for it. Everybody has different budgets, but when you're newly married and you have so many things to save up for. You're trying to save up probably to buy a house, unless you're older and you're getting married, then that's probably not something that you have to worry about. You're saving up to buy a house. You might be saving up for a move. Maybe you're saving up because somebody wants to go back to school. All sorts of things. I feel like there's lots of things to save up for. Saving for retirement, that's a big thing. That's another reason we don't do very expensive dates, is because we prioritize saving for retirement, considering that I am a homemaker and I am not, earning an active income at home. So my husband's job is, his job is to make the money, and my job is to find more ways to save it. So inexpensive dates, I feel like they're just better. I'm trying to think of an expensive date. I hate going to a really, really fancy restaurant. And I say really, really fancy. My husband's been to some fancier restaurants than I have. I've never been somewhere where food's more than $50 a plate. I enjoyed going recently to the Sevierville Buc-ee's that just opened up. I enjoyed going there to just get what do you call it? Like a little, oh, I had a breakfast sandwich, but they also have like breakfast tacos. My husband got a breakfast croissant. That was delicious. But I don't think I've ever ordered a meal where it's been more than like $25 for a plate. Like for one person, like $25. We also don't drink alcohol, so that's another thing that we don't have to worry about spending money on going out. But inexpensive dates, don't feel the need compared to social media to have these really ritzy dates, these ritzy anniversaries, because those are not what are making your marriage strong. It's the bond that you have together. It's not the outside spending on frivolous things. And like I said, if you've got the money, like if we'd been married like 50 years, we had a fully funded retirement, we are like coasting, our house is paid off, like sure, we'll have a ritzy anniversary that year. But I'm talking about for these early years of marriage. My fourth thing is to laugh often at the good and the bad. I feel like my husband is one of those people, he does not get angry very easily, which I appreciate immensely. He is slow to anger, he's slow to wrath, he's rarely mad. He is like this all the time. He doesn't get super excited, he doesn't get super angry or upset. He's just like right in even keel, right in the middle. So I have to get better at this. He's definitely better at it than I am, of just laughing stuff off. Like, it really doesn't matter. I'll just be like, something will go wrong and he's just laughing about it, because what are the odds that this insane thing would have happened? And it's helped me to learn to just laugh off problems, because if you get aggravated and start yelling, and especially if it's nobody's fault, it's just never going to end well. Confrontation begets more confrontation. More anger begets more anger. I feel like as wives, especially, like once you have children and, you know, with your husbands, is like I'm sure you've heard this said before, is like you set the tone for the home, and how you come into things is what the tone is going to be. Your children 100% are going to match your tone. If you're aggravated, your spouse is going to be aggravated. If I'm in an angry mood, my husband's going to be angry. But I also just try to say, if I'm feeling a certain way, to just say it. Like, I'm just like feeling like I'm just annoyed today. Something's just on my nerves. I'm just annoyed. Or I'm just kind of sad today. I don't know why I'm sad. Usually it's because I haven't been in the sun. I'm like a sun person. And my husband goes, why don't you just go sit outside in the sun for a little bit? Get on your hammock. And then I usually feel better. And I go, yeah, that's what it was. Or, you know, oh, I just feel kind of cranky. And he's like, have you eaten anything? Maybe you should eat a popsicle. So sometimes it's good to say those kind of emotions too, because then your spouse can be like, give you a suggestion. Because, you know, sometimes we don't recognize that we're hangry or whatever. But laugh at the good and the bad. Life's gonna take you on a big journey. We've driven far to a restaurant and it's been like closed. We, on our honeymoon, tried to go to 2 different places. One place was not even there. Like, we looked it up, we drove to the address, and the building was gone. So don't know what happened to that. And another one we drove to was a Japanese place, and the woman had posted a sign up. She was gone to Japan for 3 months. And we just laughed. We were like, wow, what a weird thing to have happen. Because at the end of the day, what did we end up doing? We found another restaurant. It wasn't a big deal. There's no reason to get upset about it. I mean, we found another place to eat. We ate it, and it was fine. So no need to get overly upset. Just laugh it off. And my final, and honestly, I would say my biggest tip that has helped in our marriage is just 3 words. Just say it. Just say it. Whatever it is, just say it. And if something is bothering you, or you want something, just say it. I mean, honestly, that aggravates my husband, and it aggravates me too. Is just like, if you specifically want something and you're trying to make the other person guess, there's a reason that there's all these memes online about husbands asking your wives, oh, what do you want to eat? I don't know. And I say that sometimes, but I'm honestly saying I don't know. But sometimes you can make it easier by saying, I don't know, but I know I don't want like fast food or something. Or I know I want this style, or I'm fine with anything but Mexican or sushi or whatever it is, because then that actually helps move towards a solution versus just being like, I don't know. And then because it aggravates my husband if he starts rattling off like 3 or 4 things and I shoot them all down because he's like, well, obviously you have an opinion because you shot down the last 4 things I suggested. I just say it, because I feel like it's easier to regret leaving things unsaid. If there's something you want, or there's something you want to do, or there's something that you're feeling, I feel like it's just better to get it off your chest, say it, and move on. I've done this so many times. Like, there was like a little cheesy photo op at the aquarium, which I was just looking at the pictures, so I was thinking about the aquarium, but there was a cheesy photo op, and I asked my husband if he wanted to do it, and he said no. And I was like, okay. And I kind of wanted to do it. Like, I was like, oh yeah. It's like this big plastic surfboard you can stand on, and you take each other's pictures. It's not one of the paid for photos. And we were getting ready to leave, and I said, you know, I really want to take a picture on that surfboard. He goes, okay. Why would I not just, sometimes you just need to come out and say what you want, because they're not mind readers. Or like to pet the stingrays. And my husband's like, not very interested. And I said, I want to touch one stingray before we leave. And he goes, okay. You know, that's fine. He didn't really want to, but he's fine to just sit there with me while I do it. So just say things. An argument we had early in our marriage was we were on a large road trip and I was starving. And when I say large road trip, it was like 7 or 8 hours. Probably closer to 8 because I remember it was like a Thanksgiving weekend trip, so there was a ton of traffic. I was starving. My husband says, we'll just eat when we get there. And I was like, okay. And what I should have said was, I'm hungry right now, and I would like to stop somewhere along the way back. I should have just said it. Why did I not say it? I don't know. But then we get all the way back to my parents' house. They're not there. And then he wants me to make something when we get there. And I was like, I'm exhausted. I don't even know what they have here. Like, there's no food here. I have no idea what food's in this house. I don't even know where any of the stuff is. Like, how am I supposed to know what to fix? So that was like a frustration on my part that could have easily been avoided had I not just voiced it. And he said later, why didn't you just tell me you wanted to stop? I would have stopped. Instead of me just passive aggressively saying like, oh, are you hungry? No? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you kind of want for dinner tonight? I should have just said, I'm hungry. I would like to stop when we see X, Y, or Z place. Yeah. The next time we see a McDonald's, I would like to stop. And now it's not an issue. Now we're on a road trip and I'll just say, I want to stop to eat something. And he says, okay, drive through or sit down. Because if I'm driving, a lot of times I want to sit down. Like, I want to sit down and not drive and just like relax for a minute. So I'll just say it. And he'll say, okay. And then we move forward. It's just, I feel like, I mean, they always talk about, oh, communication is so important, because it is. You just need to say things, say what's on your mind, say what you feel, say what you mean. And I feel like it's easier to work through things if you just say it. And you also avoid arguments, like the examples I gave, if you just say it. But I've enjoyed these past 5 years of marriage. My husband is a very easy person to be married to. We always joke that like we were just made for one another. We're just the two halves of the same whole. We're just fully enmeshed at this point. I was never lived on my own before I got married. I lived in a dorm for a year, and that was it. And I don't really call that living on your own, because you're eating in a dining hall. It's not really living independently. So, I left my parents and joined my husband, and it's been a great 5 years. I just have to say, I could go on and on about how great he is, but it's wonderful. And, I made a good choice, which I will say one funny story before I leave you all about getting married at our age, and we joked that we married strangers at certain points, and that we joked we were a semi-arranged marriage. When we went to apply for our marriage license, I didn't put the right name for him down. So he goes by Nathan, and his name is Nathaniel, legally. I didn't know that. I filled out the information, and I'd asked him other questions, like your parents' full names that you have to put on there and all that sort of stuff. So like I'd been communicating with him about the marriage certificate, applying for the marriage certificate, because, I didn't know all these different things. I wasn't exactly sure where he was born. We grew up in the same area, but I wasn't sure what hospital he was born at because there's a few different ones. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know which hospital he was born at because he's moved. We grew up together in the same area, but before 4th grade, he moved around a few different places in that same area, if you get what I mean. So I wasn't sure which hospital he was born at, what his mom lived closest to at the time. So I went up there and, you know, the guy's having us look over it one last time saying it doesn't look good. And he looks down and he goes, well, that's not my name. And the guy just looks at us like, what? And I was like, what do you mean it's not your name? He said, my name's Nathaniel. And I was like, what are you talking about? You've never mentioned this to me before. So I'm thinking to myself, this man that is helping us do this marriage certificate probably thinks we're just two dumb kids because I don't even know what his legal name is. So yeah, me 100%. I joked the first like year or two that I was like, I'm learning new things about you all the time. I have no idea so many different things that I just wasn't even fully aware of. So that is my funny little story. I don't regret getting married at our age. I don't feel like there would have been there was a bug. If you were like, what are her eyes doing? There's a bug flying around. I don't feel like there was any point in waiting. I'm glad we didn't. I've been very happy to, you know, spend these years of my early 20s married. I actually used to pray as an early teenager for years that God would bring my husband early to me so that I could love him and be with him for as long as possible. So I could be married to him for as long as possible and be with him. I was always for whatever reason, so worried that I wouldn't meet him until I was so much older. And that was just a specific prayer I prayed for. Little did I know, I'd already met him. We just weren't dating yet. So I would say he preemptively answered that prayer. So that is this week's video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. What is your biggest tip, marriage advice? I'm not saying I'm an expert on marriage. I'm just saying these are some things that I've learned in the past 5 years, but I am not a marriage expert. I have no degree in counseling or anything like that. I just, you know, this is just what works for us. Leave me a comment down below. What is your marriage advice or your #1 marriage tip? So I will see you guys next week. Bye.